Hi, my name is Karen Dorsey, and thanks for taking time to pause and ponder. A few days ago, I was taking a walk when I saw a little girl sitting on the grass. Her arms were crossed, and her back was turned to her mother. Now, I have no idea what was going on there, but it made me think about the times that I've had either former students or my own children or even my grandchildren get mad at me and they turn their back on. That's their way of saying, I'm not going to communicate with you, and for them to distance themselves. In Second Chronicles chapter 29, King Hezekiah said the same thing about the nation Israel. He was talking to the priests and the Levites, telling them to consecrate themselves so they could cleanse out the temple and turn back to God. He said, our fathers were unfaithful. They did evil in the sight of the Lord our God. They turned their faces from his dwelling place and turned their back on him. And in the New Testament, Jesus tells the parable of the prodigal son, who in effect turned his back on his dad when he asked for his inheritance and went off to live the good life, which turned out to not be such a good life after all. In the case of the little girl, I was there long enough that I saw her get up off of the grass and go running back to her mom, ready to be received with love and open arms. And in the case of Israel, the people did turn their hearts back to the Lord. And the Lord was waiting there with open arms, and good things happened in Judah during that time period. In the case of the prodigal son, the dad opened wide his arms and embraced his son. He was so thankful that the son was back and the son was safe. And the Lord our God takes us the same way. He opens his arms wide and he says, I love you. Turn back to me. If you have turned your back on God, so to speak, because of something that's happened in your life, whether because of you or because of somebody else, maybe you've had the unspeakable happen and you just do not want to communicate with God and you want to distance yourselves. I wonder if there's a bigger picture that you're not seeing. In the case of Daniel, and we read about in the book of Daniel, there was a bigger picture. If you remember, he was taken captive by the Babylonians. His king was shackled and taken to Babylon, and he was among the group of royal or noble people who were taken at the same time. So he was stripped from his homeland, placed somewhere else, put in the service of a king and expected to serve him. And during the lifetime that Daniel was there in Babylon, Jerusalem was completely destroyed. The temple was destroyed. Everything he knew and loved was destroyed. People were killed by the sword during the battles that took place, likely people that he knew and loved. So the unspeakable happened to Daniel. And yet, during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, who is the one who did bring him to Babylon, God did things to humble Nebuchadnezzar's pride. And because of the way Daniel had stood firm in his faith and had shown the power of God, Nebuchadnezzar said to all the people, you need to fear and reverence the God of Daniel. And Nebuchadnezzar himself praised him. We read about that in Daniel chapter 4. And in Daniel chapter 6, years later, another king ruled, and this king, Darius, was a Mede because the Medes had conquered Babylon by that time. And Daniel served Darius also. And during that time, because of the way that Daniel stood strong in his faith, Darius actually turned to God. And he not only turned to God himself, he commanded that the entire region that he ruled turn to the God of Daniel and serve him and worship him and acknowledge him as God. You see, the unspeakable happened to Daniel, but there was a bigger picture there where God was able to touch kingdoms because of Daniel's faithful witness. I wonder if there's a bigger picture in your tragedy that you haven't seen yet. And I wonder and I pray that you could take a step closer to God. Turn back around and look at Him and ask Him to show you the bigger picture. I pray that your wounds would be healed, that as Psalm 23 says, your soul would be restored and you would turn your heart to the Lord our God.